Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the TubeMix football podcast called Without Having Kicked the Ball. Now, in this episode, there won't be so much of analysis, but we'll be sharing our thoughts on the three football leagues, the Championship, League 1, League 2. So it's basically an EFL preview and discussing all things from there. But first of all, we start with the news that you may have heard or seen recently that Craig Shakespeare passed away at the age of 60. Craig was assistant manager to Nigel Pearson, where they pulled off the Great Escape, and then stayed with his successor Claudio Ranieri, where of course they won the Premier League, one of the greatest stories in sport and football, just an absolutely magical time. That was the time that I actually got back into football, and I think even if you weren't a Foxes fan, you were just absolutely swept up in that, and it was just an absolutely wonderful, and I'm sure a day that many Leicester City fans will never forget. So Craig, rest in peace, and condolences to your family. Right, with that now out of the way, over to Jordan.
Well, I think first of all, let's preface the EFL as a whole by saying that the EFL, 72 teams all over the country, some fantastic storylines always. I just want to highlight a few things such as Wayne Rooney in at Plymouth, Scott Parker returning to management with Burnley, Sheffield United back down at the level, Oxford's first season in 25 years at this level, Portsmouth back, some would say where they belong, Derby as well. But yeah, there's three teams that I've chosen specifically because of certain factors. We'll start with one that I don't hold a lot of hope for, I'll be honest, and that is Watford. Now, Watford have been owned by the Pozzo family, as we know. They own Granada in Spain, or at least they did. Don't know whether they still do, to be honest, but because I don't particularly follow their whole football operation. But they are owners of Udinese in Italy, and during the time that the Watford has been owned by the Pozzo family, it's been very successful, you would say. Playoff campaigns, Premier League, promotions and solidarity, and then it kind of tailed off a little bit with some relegations and now they are, where they've been down at this level for a couple of years now. The one thing that I will say about Watford, which I really like, is managerially. Now, obviously, we know that they got rid of Valerian Ismail and brought in Tom Cleverley as an interim. Tom Cleverley did particularly, I don't know, he steadied the ship. I don't know whether he did an amazing job. I wouldn't say he did a bad job either. He did the right kind of job to steady the ship at Watford. And he got the job permanently, which I really like that appointment. Young manager, very young, obviously retired early due to injury. And yeah, very, very interested to see what he does. That being said, I think Watford's squad is very poor this year. I think that they have the one thing that they need to look out for is losing what I think is their star man, Yasser Asprilla, the young Colombian who did very well at the Copa America, has been watched by the Premier League for a long time FC Barcelona target apparently, and yeah, so he is the one that I would worry about them losing. He's not gone as of yet, but I do think it's something to watch because I think that he is one of many of the kind of championship stars in the same ilk as a kind of a Morgan Whittaker at Plymouth or a Willie Nonto at Leeds, where you could see these fantastic players that light up the lower leagues kind of move on to the bright lights of the Premier League. In terms of transfer business, not great, really. They've brought back academy graduate Jonathan Bond from LA Galaxy to play some kind of backup goalkeeping role or challenge for the number one spot. Now, in terms of transfers for Watford, I think it's been very poor. We've got three major signings, I would say. There is one for a Malian centre forward, Mamadou Doumbia, I've never heard of, and he comes from the Malian league, which would suggest to me that he is for the future. So let's talk about those transfers. Jonathan Bond comes in as a free agent, previously of LA Galaxy, obviously came through at Watford, was at West Brom for a little while. A lad going by the name of Rocco Vata, supposedly very highly rated at Celtic, but then you do wonder if he was very highly rated at Celtic, why would they let him go for not very much money? So I'm led to believe to a higher level, if you could say that the Championship is higher level than the FPL, which some people would say yes, some people would say no. The other one, which is quite eye-catching considering the profile of the player, but I'll understand, I'll go into why it might not work out, is Moussa Sissoko, who comes in on a free from Nantes. Obviously, Moussa Sissoko, formerly of Toulouse, of Tottenham Hotspur, Watford previously as well, France, of course. And the reason that I'm not so keen on this transfer is just purely the age of Sissoko. At the age that he is, 34, to drop down to the Championship.
My goodness me, he's getting on a bit.
To drop down to the Championship, you wonder whether, is he going to be at the right level? Now, as we said, French international, great player, so he could set the world alight. I think a lot of these signings, I think it's important to preface that when you don't know a lot about a player or they've been away for a while and they come back, it is quite difficult generally for anybody to say, well, is this guy going to be a success or not? I'm just going based on kind of my own thoughts and opinions. Now, also in is a young centre-back from Udinese called Antonio Tikovic. Oh my God, I'm going to butcher the name. Tikovic, I'm going to go with. Croatian centre-back. And we know that over the years, the Udinese-Watford partnership has either done very well or done not so well. I'm thinking more about when I first got into football, when you had from Watford Vidra, if anybody remembers that amazing Gianfranco Zola Championship side.
Yes.
And another one that they brought in is the left back, Yasser Larouci from Troyes in France, who you may know from his short spell in the Premier League with Sheffield United last season. Now, again, didn't look great in the Premier League, but it's the level below. You don't know how they're gonna fare. In terms of outgoings, I already mentioned about Asprilla, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen with him. Another one that's gone is Canadian midfielder Ismail Kone to Marseille, who I'm sure we'll touch on when we do a little bit of a European League preview. But that's a big miss. He's a very good player, still young, early 20s. Did all right in the Championship. I think, again, struggling team. Hard to tell to the level of certain players. Players that are no longer with the club have been released. Three of note, really. Ben Hamer from Sheffield. Ben Hamer, who is a goalkeeper, came in from, I want to say, Derby. I'm just going to check that. It was Swansea, but he was at Derby before that. So I don't feel too bad about that one. And he's left, so he was competing for the goalkeeper gloves with Austrian international Daniel Bachmann. And the other one is, as we said, or we talked about off air a little bit, Ashley Fletcher, who's left and gone to Blackpool. Now, it's quite interesting with Ashley Fletcher. I'm just going to touch on this a little bit. It's a little bit of a tangent. In the case of a lot was thought about him. He's had some big moves in his career and never very well as a goal scorer in centre forward. Just interesting to see whether that Blackpool move works out or not.
Did he?
The final one. Go on.
Just on Ashley Fletcher. Did he have a youth career at United?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
I thought he did. Yeah.
That's the one. The final one I wanted to touch on in terms of releases before we get into the actual squad, and I maybe ask for some thoughts for the rest of the panel, is ex-England midfielder Jake Livermore. Now, obviously, had quite a few caps for England. Good player. Again, getting older.
West Brom, didn't he?
Yeah,
Played for West Brom.
Hull.
Yeah. And Hull, yeah. Now, same age as Sissoko, interestingly. But, 7 caps for England. A very decent player. I think at the time of his kind of England career, underrated, I would say. But we'll see whether losing those kind of players does a lot to the squad. Now, in terms of the squad itself, what they've actually got to work with, as I said, the 2 goalkeepers are Daniel Backman and Jonathan Bond. Defensively, it's still a lot of the same guys. Jeremy Ngakia at fullback, right fullback, Sia Ralto, Wesley Huth, Ryan Porteous. A lot of guys that we've already seen. Guys like Ryan Andrews, who had a really good breakout season last season. In midfield, there are some very interesting players, but as we kind of mentioned, some of those may be on the way out. I want to highlight Georgi Chekpatadze, the number 8 Georgian midfielder, who had a very good Euros. Imran Loser, centre midfielder, Moroccan, supposedly on his way out as well. Yasser Asprilla, as we already mentioned. In the forward areas, we've got some names that you may know, some names that you almost definitely do not. The one I'm talking about that you will know, Tom Ince. I feel like it's a really interesting name and has been for many years now because there's always been so much thought of him. He's a bit of a Jesse Lingard. I think if you turn around to somebody and you say, oh yeah, remember Tom Ince, 32 years old, and they think, oh my God. Very, very kind of lackluster front line, I would say. You've got Mileta Rajovic, Ken Sema, great player, to be honest. I like Ken Sema. Bakary Bayo didn't really do very well. Samuel Kalou hasn't done very well. Kwadwo Bar at 21 could still do very well. Not quite sure where he's going to go. But yeah, at this point, doesn't look amazing for Watford. I don't know whether, based on everything I've said, anybody agrees or has any other thoughts on Watford. But I don't think it's looking great, to be honest with you.
No, I agree with you. And I think, obviously, year on year, every single league is getting more and more competitive. And I think, although Tom Cleverley, I do think he'll have a good managerial career ahead of him, I do think it'll be years to come before Watford can get out the league again.
Yeah, I agree. I think as well there's quite a lot of there's a lot of financial toing and throwing with the Pozzos between Udinese and Watford, and sometimes Watford have a stronger financial squad and budgets and stuff, and sometimes it's Udinese's turn, and I feel like that's kind of where they're at the moment. I don't know. The championship's the championship. We know by now that there's these teams that come and they shock, and and Sheffield Wednesday, for instance, were both basically dead and buried in the championship, and then they brought in Martí Cifuentes and Danny Roll, and they did unbelievable jobs for the team. So you never know. The championship, I think, is the most unpredictable league in the world.
I agree with you. I also think it's the toughest league to get out of.
Absolutely, I would say. So I kind the way I was kind of wanting to do this with these EFL clubs was to talk about them in the way I think they're gonna finish. So I personally think that Watford, out of the teams that I'd highlighted, and also Ben, you highlighted some of those that you thought might, have an interesting story this season. I also think that they will finish below all of those that you mentioned. I don't know whether you want to quickly just go through your thoughts on the teams that you brought up.
Yes, no worries. So, to start off with, I'm going to talk about Leeds. Now, Leeds, they came close last season, narrowly missing out on a return to the Premier League, losing out against Southampton in the playoff final. They've just lost Somerville to West Ham.
Big miss.
Will the sell Nonto as well? And if they do, who will they bring in to replace him? Archie Gray as well going to Tottenham. I think two crucial cogs in their system last season. Obviously, Nonto's still the star man. They're keeping hold of him for now, but whether they will remain that way remains to be seen. But they've still kept hold of Farker, who knows how to get out the league. He's won back-to-back promotions with Norwich. So yeah, and some of the signings they've made as well is 2 seconds.
I'll just interject while you do that and say I completely agree on the sales of Crescentia Somerville. Massive loss, but good fee. And Archie Gray, again, big loss, and I think it hurts Leeds as a club in general, because obviously he's a third generation player. Excuse me. But the 40 million fee is not something that you can shake a stick at all.
Exactly.
I'll let you carry on in a second. I just want to also highlight Jorginho Ruta, who's an interesting one. French, a young kind of striker, number 10, plays a weird kind of role at Leeds. Very interested that nobody's had a punt on him yet, although obviously came into Leeds for 40 million-ish and probably on quite big wages, which I imagine is a sticking point on that issue. And yeah, that's all I would say about those, so I'll let Ben continue.
No, I agree with you. And just on that, it'd be interesting to see the dynamic Leeds take now, because they've had a summer of a clear out, I'd say. I'm just looking at some of the departures, and there's a big long list of them. So I suspect more incomings will arrive, and it'd be interesting to see how they gel. I also think an interesting sale is Charlie Cresswell, because he was tipped to be a wonder kid for Leeds, to be fair, and he had a few loan spells, did well at Millwall, I believe, but obviously it's not worked out for him at Leeds.
Yeah, I've always thought that was a strange one to interject, because Charlie Cresswell is a very good player.
And Archie Gray, I think with him personally, obviously I watched a fair bit of the Championship last season. Very good player, versatile, but don't know what you think, George. Has the move come too soon for him?
We'll see. I don't know. I think we'll see with that. I think it's a very interesting thing. I think we'll see whether he gets minutes or not. I don't know about that one. I feel like Ange is the right kind of manager for a young player like that. But I kind of see him as he could either be amazing and do really well, or he could be another ride session Yon where he starts well and then things kind of get on top of him and he ends up moving away. We'll see. I don't know. It's too early to tell with that one, I think.
Yeah, it's certainly going to make for interesting reading. Also, just on the Spurs and Leeds scenarios, so the flip reverse of that is Joe Roden has made his loan move permanent. He was a fixture in Leeds' narrow success that they had last season. I think if they were to get promoted this season, I think he'd be at the heart of it. But as I touched on before, it's a very, very difficult league to get out of. And whether they'll be able to get over the line this season remains to be seen, but they will definitely be one of the favourites.
Okay,
100%.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just agreeing.
I think
Okay.
one other person I was going to mention is Jaden Bogle going there as well.
Formerly of Sheffield United.
Yeah, that's right. And formerly of Derby as well. Again, he was tipped to be a great, highly sought after player. He still has a lot to offer.
Did Lampard sign him?
No, Lampard brought him through.
Yeah.
Right.
The system Daniel Farker plays, I think, will complement him. I just thought I'd bring him up because he hasn't sort of lived up to his potential, but maybe he can revive his career under Farker and at Leeds.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting move, and I think a great coup for Leeds as well, because I can imagine that there would have been some Premier League clubs sniffing around him.
Do you have anything to add or say, Will or Jordan?
No, I haven't. No, so
I'm pretty happy with what you've already mentioned there.
Yes.
Right, so let's see. So obviously, Ben, your 3 clubs to watch out for were Derby County, Leeds. Apologies, could you just say who the other one was?
Portsmouth.
And
one thing I forgot to do was do a prediction of where I think Leeds would finish.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah.
I'm just gonna do that. I think just going off the squad players I've mentioned there, although they've lost some key names, I still think they have a good enough squad to be right up at the top end of the championship, fighting for promotion, fighting for the league. But I'm gonna stick them in third. I think they'll just miss out in the automatics.
Yeah, I like that.
Right, okay, and positions of Derby.
Positions of Derby, difficult one, because I haven't really spoke about them, but obviously new to the league after a year or two away, they have made some interesting signings. Obviously, Paul Warren's been a good keep for them, I'd say. Obviously, formerly of Rotherham, but I'm gonna put them 21st. I think they'll get relegated. I think they need more reinforcements, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Well, first of all,
hang on. Sorry, George. I just want to. Portsmouth, where do you think they'll finish?
I think there'll be a surprise package, to be fair. Obviously, a historic football club,
Yes.
growing up watching the Premier League, which they
Yeah, I remember them.
used,
Glenn Johnson used to play
which
for the
they
team.
used to be a part of. Kevin Prince Boateng, Ben Johnny. I think they'll surprise people. I'm gonna say 18th.
Right. Okay.
I'll go ahead. If we're doing predictions as well, I'll go ahead and predict Watford.
Yeah.
I will say, I don't know. I don't want to hang my hat and go as bold as say they're definitely going to get relegated. So I'm going to play it safe and say
Well,
that they will.
just say what you think. Just say what you think.
I will go ahead and say they will just about stay up. I think it's too difficult to, it's not the greatest idea to predict the championship because the championship will always come back to surprise you.
This is a bit of a side note, but obviously, recently I've been doing a Premier League prediction preview thing, and one thing I've noticed is predictions, no matter what the league, is a lot harder than you think because you're so conflicted. And as you just said, George, you'll always have a few teams that will surprise you, do better than you thought, and do a lot worse than you thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of, later on in the show, we'll talk a bit more, of course, about Ben's football folio as well. Ben's blog for you to check out as well. Just wanted to jump in there.
Absolutely. So, carrying on from the three teams that I wanted to highlight, which is what I thought Ben was going to do with Derby and Portsmouth, but it doesn't seem to be the case unless we're going to go back to them. Was the next in my three is Sunderland. Sunderland, obviously, again, as we've said, such as a Portsmouth, a Derby, huge club, massive.
They've been through a lot of managers, haven't they?
Yeah, quite right.
Yes,
Massive
they are.
history with the Premier League. Obviously, not gone so well last few seasons. Back-to-back relegations led us to Alex Neil taking them up to the Championship. Obviously, then a mixed few years in the Championship, which kind of led to the departure of Tony Mowbray, and then now they're kind of in this strange thing where they appointed Mick Beale, a manager who a lot was thought of. It was always mentioned that a lot of the good work done by Steven Gerrard was a lot to do with kind of Mick Beale and the people around him at the time of Rangers. Obviously, he's come to Sunderland, huge job, bit of a poison chalice nowadays as well, and hasn't done so well. And in the interim, they didn't appoint a manager. They had an interim manager whose name escapes me, but I'm going to find it because they'll do my head in, because the kind of person I am. I cannot stand not knowing things. It's Mike Dodds, who's been a caretaker there before. Popular figure around the club and still is. I don't think anything sort of took away from his relationship with fans. This season, Reggie Labrie is the head coach, and he has a career that the underlying numbers for his career aren't, but his last job at Lorient wasn't great. I read a stat where it was something like his expected goals against per game is something like 2.2. It's really poor. And it's a massive unknown in terms of what he's going to do. Now, obviously, we'll start again with transfers. Two major senior ones, and that is the signings of Preston captain Alan Brown and Leeds attacking midfielder Ian Paveda. Now, Alan Brown has been Preston captain for a long time. Great player, really key to what they do and they've done as a club under Ryan Lowe. And a pretty good signing for a bit of championship experience. Paveda, we know a bit about him. Obviously had a spell at Sheffield Wednesday last season. A lot expected of him. Still young, 24, but still young.
I think he was at Barcelona at one stage.
I will double check that for you. Yes, he was. Yes.
Full knowledge.
Yeah, that was good. A lot thought of him, and he's not quite come to it as of yet. Another thing to mention: the only other senior signings so far have been goalkeepers. Simon Moore from Coventry and Blondie near Newquay, probably butchered that. The Cameroonian youngster from Stoke, both on frees. That's because if they hadn't done that, they've basically got zero goalkeeper depth. They sold Alex Bass to Notts County and loaned out Nathan Bishop, the backup last season, to Wickham, and Matthew Young, another goalkeeper, to Salford. More on them later, hint, hint. To talk about players that they released, because I think there's one or two that are pretty interesting. Two senior players that, again, are big names released in Corey Evans and Bradley Dack. Bradley Dack, a bit of a shame, lots of injuries over the years, was a fantastic player for Blackburn Rovers.
Where's he gone now?
So as of now, he hasn't got a club.
Fair enough.
A shame, a massive shame. So, let's talk about the squad as a whole. As I said, if it wasn't for those three transfers of those goalkeepers, we would have had only one senior goalkeeper, that being Anthony Patterson, who is an outstanding goalkeeper, 24 years of age, has come through the youth ranks at Sunderland, and is just a really fantastic goalkeeper. I don't know how much you've seen of him.
Yeah, I've seen a fair bit, and I don't know whether it's just because the Sunderland connections or what, but it reminds me a bit of shades of Jordan Pickford.
Yeah. What I was going to say, funnily enough.
And obviously Pickford's a character, we know that, and I think he definitely has a bit of character about it. To be a goalkeeper, you've got to have a mad streak in you, and I do believe those are the best goalkeepers.
Yeah, definitely. So, that's the goalkeeper position. In defence, very much the same. Lots of those exciting young to youngish players, the kind of early 20s to mid-20s, which there's so many of these in this squad. Adji Elise, Dan Ballard, Dennis Sherkin, Niall Huggins, Try Hume, Timothy Pemberley, just a who's who of young to youngish talent is what we'll call it, young to youngish, who have another year of championship experience under their belt. Go on, mate.
Just interjecting a second, that's what I admire about Sunderland, obviously. Under Tony Mowbray, they were on the cusp of the playoffs, the playoff final, they got into the playoff. The season where they had Amad Diallo now at United. I just think once they gel together again and get the right manager, I think they'll replicate that season. Until then, though, I still see it being a poison chalice.
Yeah, absolutely. A shout out for the one person in this defence, by the way, that is an older head. Captain Luke O'Nien is a
Yes.
hugely popular character for the Sunderland fans and that community. In terms of midfield, again, very much the same, young to youngish, as we'll call it. Abdullah Bar, Adil Ashish, Pierre Aqua, Jay Matete, Dan Neal, 17-year-old, I think he's 17 now, yes, just check that. Chris Rigg, Jay Matete, Elliot Embleton, and of course, the one to watch for me, or one of the ones to watch, because I think there's two in this side, or three, let's say, actually, just looking at it again, which is obviously Joe Bellingham.
No.
Great season, considering they haven't had a good one. But he might leave, actually. I don't know whether you've seen that.
That's what I was just about to say. And sorry to keep interjecting, Joe.
That's fine, I did it to you.
But just on Joe Bellingham, it's gone very quiet now. But towards the start of the window, there was talk of Crystal Palace, I think Bournemouth. So if they can keep hold of him, then he will be integral to their potential success.
Yeah, that was a massive rumour going around, wasn't it? The Palace thing was huge. To carry on with the forwards.
Is it going to be hard for him to, because being brother of Jude Bellingham, do you think it's going to be a lot of pressure on him to live up to that?
No,
well, me personally, I think obviously everyone knows who his brother is. That goes without saying, and I think you might agree with me here, George, that he'll want to write his own story.
Yeah, well, obviously, the biggest indicator of that is that on the back of Joe Bellingham's shirt actually just says Job. It doesn't even say Bellingham.
Yeah, exactly.
And a different type of player as well, and one that I think could reach the same heights as his brother, despite the heights that Jude has reached being astronomical. I also think that it's worth noting that Joe Bellingham was playing in Birmingham's first team as a 16-year-old, not so dissimilar to what Jude did as a 15-year-old. So I think they're on similar journeys, but I think one's obviously got there a lot sooner than the other, and I think we will see Joe Bellingham come into his own this season, and I think that is a massive key thing as well in terms of how well they do. So just to finish up on the forwards before I give a little bit of an overview of what I think is actually going to happen, we have got Jewison Bennett, who was brought in last season but didn't do too much as of yet. The two main ones for me, the wingers, Jack Clark and Patrick Roberts, fantastic creators, work really well together, have a good partnership with Jude Bellingham. Eliezer Mienda, who I've never heard of before, but is a guy who they signed last season. That's interesting. So I'd click on his name. He seems like somebody I'd never heard of before. Another one that was quite interesting from Standard Liège. I think he came in January. Englishman Romain Mundle. A lot thought of him. Still a lot of time for him to catch fire in the league. And there's also young Ukrainian and Portuguese forwards Nazari Ruzin and Luis Semedo. To just wrap up on Sunderland, I think it all depends on how Reggie Labrie is going to set up. If they can get their best out of those wingers in Clark and Roberts, Vader, Mundle, and bring Bellingham into play, I think that it's really difficult to place whether they're going to have a great season or a terrible one. I'm
Yes.
sure we'll find out, but I do think it's difficult.
Well, just adding my final piece on Sunderland, kind of echoing what you said there. As we said a second ago about Joe Bellingham, being linked with Premier League clubs. So has Jack Clark in the past few days. I think he's been linked with Ipswich. So of course, if they're gonna have success pushing for the playoffs, I think they're gonna have to keep a settled side.
Yeah, most definitely. I think a couple more introductions might not hurt. You know, a couple more new signings.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose the only thing that you can really do is see where it goes, because I think it, like as we said, it's a very interesting one to try and nail down where they're gonna finish.
And obviously, I'm not a Sunderland fan, so if there's any Sunderland fan in the comments, feel free to get your thoughts. But perhaps they need a few more experienced heads as well, because the only one that really jumps out is Luke O'Nien, really. Cause,
You need just to jump in, you need a mixture, don't you? You need, obviously, some experience to help the youth players through.
Yes, that's right. And obviously, Alex Pritchard's left. Has he gone to Birmingham?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. So that'll be a miss for Sunderland in terms of experience. But yeah, I think we've said enough about Sunderland, to be fair.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything major there, haven't we? Really.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so should we move on to League One then?
Yes, if that's the route you want to go down.
Now,
Yeah,
admittedly, I don't know much about League One at all, so really, I've got to hand it over to you.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to say very quickly on the Championship.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to mention about Hull. Obviously, we got a little bit in about Derby and Portsmouth. One that I do think is one to watch for sure is Hull City. No longer with Liam Rossini, with Tim Walter, who comes with a reputation for a brand of football which he likes to call, or has been called by the German press, heart attack football. So God knows how that's going to work out.
Yes.
They've lost some pretty important players. I think Ozan Tufan going to Trabzonspor, big miss. I think Jacob Greaves going to Ipswich Town, big miss. I think
Carvalho gone back on loan?
No, not as of yet. I don't think he will either.
Yeah.
I think in the Premier League is where he's going to stay, I'd imagine. And the biggest one for me is Jaden Philogene, who
going back
returned
to Villa.
Yes. If you had the absolute privilege to watch Jaden Philogene, then you know why that's probably the biggest miss of any club in the Championship, because he is a fantastic player. The only I'd say it's comparable to the loss of Archie Gray, and yeah, we'll see what happens there. It's still a good squad. Not so many of the kind of the bigger names there, but I think we've got a lot to look forward to when looking at Hull City, and I wouldn't be surprised if they finish 18th. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish 5th.
Mm-hmm.
So it could go either way then.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Right, well, I think we better move on to League One. And as I said, over to you because really this is your speciality.
Do you want to start or me, George?
I think that we both had Birmingham down in our ones to watch.
Yes.
So I think we can kind of take it in turns with. Yeah.
So for me, obviously, Birmingham getting relegated from the Championship to League One, obviously, they'll be one of the favourites to bounce straight back up, obviously. The owners of big ambitious owners, I think they're in talks for a new stadium. Whether that will happen in the foreseeable, I'm not sure, but that's something rumoured to be happening. Obviously, they've signed a lot of players who are probably better than League One standard, but as we know, football doesn't always pan out like that.
I'll just name a few of those. We've got Ryan Allsop from Hull, who kind of rotated in and out of the goalkeeper position there. We've got Bailey Peacock Farrell from Burnley. A lot expected of him. Hasn't worked out in certain clubs. Alfie May, who is an absolute goalsman from Charlton.
Formerly of Cheltenham as well.
Yeah, absolute bangs the goals in wherever he goes. Emil Hansen, a winger from Hercules Almeida. I'm not going to lie and pretend that I'm a Dutch football expert. I don't know a lot about him. However, I do think that a team with so much quality on the wing is not going to complain about having another tricky winger. Other names such as Alex Cochrane from Hearts. Again, we talked about the FPL. Not the biggest expert. Willem Pure Williamson from Go Ahead Eagles. Once again, another Dutch club. Christoph Clara from Darmstadt 98, who is a centre-back. In a position where I think they do need a little bit of strengthening. And another one that I really like, because I've seen him a couple of times, Mark Leonard from Brighton Hove Albion.
Yes.
Fantastic for Northampton in League One last season. And I also want to mention the one loanee that they brought in so far, who is Luke Harris from Fulham, who gives me major Jay Stansfield vibes in terms of that kind of progression from on loan last season at Exeter, ripped it up, as Stansfield did when he was on loan there, and then Stansfield obviously was on loan at Birmingham last season and did very well.
Just a bit of trivia for you. My dad knows Luke Harris's family, so there you go.
It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, amazing.
Just quickly to bring it full circle, we just mentioned Alex Pritchard. He has left Birmingham this season. He's gone to Sivasspor in Turkey.
Really? Yes. Another thing I just quickly wanted to mention about Birmingham is obviously one of their departures being John Ruddy. Now, Ryan Alsop is a similar kind of goalkeeper with experience, so whether they'll miss Ruddy too much remains to be seen, but undoubtedly he'd be very vocal, and obviously his experience is second to none. And when you get relegated, looking to bounce straight back up, you need characters like that. So it's an interesting one for me, that.
Yeah, did well as well, obviously. Landed a very nice little third choice goalkeeper move to Newcastle.
Yes.
Which everybody remembers John Ruddy in that Norwich Premier League team, and such a fantastic keeper, and has had such a great career. So definitely deserves, the move that he's got. Now, looking at this Birmingham squad, it is just absolutely stacked with talent from the level and the level above as well. As we said, Ryan Allsop, Keshi Anderson, Juninho Bakuna, two championship names there, or well, three actually, that have had championship seasons recently. Christian Bialik, yet again, championship level.
Yes.
Lee Buchanan was playing in the Bundesliga a few seasons ago. Tariki Dembele, obviously fantastic at Peterborough, got a move to Bournemouth, didn't work so well, but has now found himself at Birmingham. Not a bad move whatsoever. Midfielder George Hall, only sort of 18, 19, supposedly the next big thing if you've ever seen him play. Fantastic. As we mentioned, a lot of like Emil Hansen, Luke Harris, Jordan James, another one, Welsh international. Not expected to be at Birmingham by the end of the window. I think in January they turned down something ridiculous like 3 bids from Atalanta in Italy for like £5-6 million. So I reckon that now that they're in League One, they could lose him. Guys like Lukas Jukovic, a massively experienced guy, been around for a long time, obviously played with Burnley in the Premier League, to name a few of his clubs. Other guys with pedigree at the level and the levels above. Ethan Laird has spent time at Bournemouth, at QPR recently. Manny Longjello, another one that was in the Birmingham Academy.
Ethan Laird also, obviously, me being a United fan, I don't know if anybody knows that. He used to play for us and made our first team on a couple of occasions.
Yeah, fantastic player. I'm quite surprised that he's at this level. I don't necessarily expect him to stay there for that long if he does well this season. Guys like Manny Longjello, Alfie May, as we said, Koji Miyoshi, fantastic player. Paik Shun Ho, Bailey Pickett-Farrell, Tyler Roberts, one of those players that Tyler Roberts was expected to do magical things in his career and just hasn't got there at all so far. Dion Sanderson, another one that's, well versed at the level.
Formerly of Wolves, I believe.
Yeah, quite right. Quite surprised to see him where he is now. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that with the amount of money that they've spent and the calibre of player they've come in, if Birmingham don't win the league or win promotion, you have to see it as not the best of seasons, definitely, because that squad that I've just read out is absolutely jam-packed full of just absolute quality.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if they don't, it can only be considered a failure, to be honest. And obviously, it's got potential to become a toxic environment if they don't, because they're a very demanding fan base. We saw with Rooney, they basically wanted him out from the get-go, and they made their opinions known, and if they don't get promoted, they'll undoubtedly do that again.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that they'll do very well this season, and if they don't, I think as well we've also missed out on another one of the big things, which is new manager.
Yes, of course.
Went through so many. John Eustace at the start of the season, Wayne Rooney, Tony Mowbray. Then he got ill. Then it was Gary Rowett, who obviously did so well when he was there the first time. This time, former assistant to Ange Postecoglou, Chris Davis. Now, don't know too much about him, but coaching career has been good so far. Sometimes it translates, sometimes it doesn't, as we know. So, again, I think irregardless of that, I'd still go out on a limb and say, with that squad, I don't feel like there's too much that you would need to do in terms of moulding it to make it a decent machine. Again, you never know, but I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that.
Yes, I think you're valid to say that. Another team we both picked out, so again we can collaboratively do this, is Salford City. So
Hold on, that's League 2. That's League 2.
Oh yes, of course.
I've got one that we did both choose though. Peterborough United in League 1.
Yes, we did. That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah,
I don't know why I said so.
That's alright. I'll start on these, if that's alright.
Yeah, no, go for it.
So, Peterborough United, I must admit, I've admired them for the last couple of seasons, ever since I've kind of got into a lot of EFL podcasts. I want to shout out Not the Top 20. I don't know whether you will or you, Ben, listen to them, but
yes,
they're fantastic, and I think they are the best EFL podcast around. Not that they're ever going to listen to this, but you know, you give people their flowers where they deserve them.
Yeah, of course.
And I think that the youth setup there is fantastic. The recruitment, people like, over the years, Dwight Gale, people like Britta Sombalonga, if you remember what he was like when he was at Peterborough years ago. Ivan Toney obviously caught fire when he was at Peterborough. So,
yes,
you know, that's a massive
They've got
team.
that, just in more recent time, they've got that Cypriot midfielder who is highly sought after.
Hector Cipriani.
Yes, that's him.
Yeah, good player.
Yeah. And carry on, George.
So, as kind of was expected, or as had been talked about for the past few seasons by the owner, Darren McAntony, who, again, fascinating guy. You know, that squad churn was coming. A lot of players could leave and would leave. So, let's get down to who's left. Goalsman in League 1 and League 2 and the Championship at points, Johnson Clark Harris, was released and has joined Steve Evans Rotherham. Centre-back Josh Knight, fantastic centre-back, has gone to play in the Bundesliga. Let's just make sure it is the Bundesliga. The Bundesliga 2, the Bundesliga 2. In Hanover 96. They've also got rid of, in terms of first team, the only other major one I would say is Cameroonian midfielder Jindu. I'm going to say it as it is, but I don't know whether it's correct. Jindu Fuchs, or Fuchs, I'd say it's Fuchs probably. So he's left, which is a bit of a weird one, but don't know whether he had the best of seasons or not really. What I'd seen of him wasn't too bad, but you never know. Transfers in. This is where it gets interesting, and this is where you'll see, apart from one or two, why I like the transfer policy. So, transfers in. Abraham Odo from Harrogate Town, like it, tricky winger. Again, like it. Not much more to say than that. I like it, I just love it. Chris Con Clark from Altrincham did very, very well in the National League last season. Scored a lot of goals, 23 in 46 league appearances in the National League at a good age, at the age of 22. Very good signing. Young centre-back George Nevitt from Rochdale, again, young signing, like it a lot. David Camera from Welling, don't know much about him, but I would imagine similar type of thing. Jensen Sumnall from West Brom, similar type of thing, youth player. Now this is the one that is the one that catches the eye of me and Ben both. And I don't want to go into it too much here, apart to talk about the unfortunate circumstances that happened to this player since his move, because I want to talk about that when we get to the club that they've been signed from, and that's Rio Adebisi from Crewe Alexandra. Now, people, long-time listeners to this podcast, to this channel, and podcast, will know that myself, as well as Sam, who joins this show from every now and again, and also Robbie, are big Crewe fans, have been for a long time. And so I want to give Rio his flowers when we talk about Crewe. What I do want to say, fantastic signing, the absolute perfect club for somebody like him to go to. And what we're hearing is that it's a freak incident that's happened. He's injured his knee, and he'll be out till at least November, December, which is really unfortunate, because I think he was signed to be first choice and a replacement for somebody that we're going to talk about a little bit further down. We've also got Kian Hayes, who is a winger, once again. Very good spells at Rochdale last season. More non-league recruitment. And the replacement, sadly, for Rio Adebisi was Jack Sparks from Portsmouth. Played 38 games in the Championship promotion winning season. Good age again, 23. From a personal point of view, I am saddened by this signing, because I think if he starts well and he does well, it could really hinder Rio. But we're trying to be non-biased here. I do like the signing. I know he's a good player. But yeah, not from a Crewe fan's point of view. Saddened by that one. The newest one is a centre back called Oscar Walling, 6'3", 23, from Degerford in Sweden. I'm not even going to act like I know this guy or I know anything about the Swedish league. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that one. But that's very different from the profile of sort of these non-league League Two players that have done very well. What do we think about recruiting from non-league as a whole?
I think it could go one or two ways. Obviously, you're taking a risk whereby it doesn't get as much exposure. But then on the flip side, it could go very, very well. Players have played in the Premier League from non-league, so that just shows you how good it can be. Jamie Vardy, Callum Wilson, to name a few.
Yes, yeah, definitely. So,
just touching on Peterborough, obviously I'm not going to say too much because you've basically summed it up perfectly, and I don't think you're done yet, so I'll try and be quick. But Rio, I think, in terms of Rio, it's testament to Peterborough that they got the signing over the line, because I think Blackburn were interested in him. They have connections. Conor Raden, Harry Pickering, and also Wigan were interested in him as well. So yeah, they did well to beat them to the signing of him. I also think a player who has departed for Southampton, I think, is centre-back Ronnie Edwards, who is in integral to their success over the past few seasons. Obviously, a young player touted as a wonder kid, really.
Yeah, some player as well, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the two major outs, as Ben kind of touched on, Ronnie Edwards, not a lot left to say that Ben hasn't already said, despite the fact that he's a fantastic ball playing centre half, and I think will adapt incredibly well to the Premier League really quickly. The other one, which I'm a little bit confused as to why he's not going to the Premier League as well, as a left back, Harrison Burrows, who goes to Sheffield United in the Championship. Now I know they'll be challenging, but I also felt that Burrows was Championship ready. Two things that I just want to mention that I didn't because of the way I've written down everything. Loans in 18-year-old right back Sam Curtis from Sheffield United. Don't know too much about him. Know he's very highly rated. Again, fits the kind of Peterborough model for young players. Like it. And Spanish defensive midfielder Mamadou Suso. Oh dear, I'm not. Susoho from Man City. We saw a couple of times last season. Highly rated, decent signing. Like it. To very quickly go over the squad that they've got because I think it's interesting. Okay, in goal, Nicholas Bilikapic and Jed Steer as the senior goalkeepers. Jed Steer, very good goalkeeper for the level. Bilikapic,
Formerly of the Premier League with Villa, most notably.
Yeah, and Norwich.
Yeah.
Bilikapic, another one, Aussie goalkeeper. Whenever he came in last season, didn't have the best of games. But we'll see. Again, another year, and the thing that Peterborough do amazingly is develop players. Defensively, Rio Adebisi, Ramoni Critchlow, Sam Curtis, George Nevitt, Jack Sparks, Oscar Walling. Decent. Nobody that, apart from, I think Critchlow is a fantastic player, but I do feel like that defensive unit has definitely lost a lot due to the kind of a loss of Rio through injury and a loss of Edwards and Burrows and also Josh Knight, obviously. In midfield, this is what I like a lot. Archie Collins, Tristan Clark, Ryan de Havilland, Hector Cipriano, who we mentioned just before, Joel Randall and Mahamadou Susoho, who we mentioned. Love that. Looks great. I think that's really good. Forwards, David Ajiboye. Really want him to have a good season this season. Took him time to kind of settle in. So I hope this is the one for him. David Ajiboye, Kian Hayes, Ricky J. Jones, Malik Motherseal. Excited to see what happens with him because he came into that Peterborough team and was fantastic. Abraham Odo, Kwame Poku. Again, expect big things from him this season. Hasn't got his partner on the opposite wing, Kwame Poku, but I think he should do just as good. And then Kabongo Shemanga, who was on loan in the National League last season. So again, good things. I think they've lost a lot, but I still think they'll do well. Playoff for me.
Okay, right. Should we quickly go over League Two, but just very quickly, just a quick round?
We are gonna go through League Two. I just want to mention there's one more team I want to mention, but I'm not going to do it in as much depth because I'm aware of how long we've been talking already, and that is Fleetwood Town. New owner, new-ish manager, and a lower level. Charlie Adams came in last season and did pretty well. I feel like they were unlucky to be relegated, but They were already in such a bad position when Adam came in that I think they were too far gone. An interesting wrinkle about Fleetwood is their previous owner slash current as of not so long ago, Andy Pilley, is in prison for 13 years for fraud. His son Jamie is now the owner, and in terms of financially or signings for the level that they're at, I like a lot of it.
Just basically
go on.
Just basically touching on what you said a couple minutes ago. As you said, they've lost a lot, but they've in what they've lost, they've gained sort of, and it still remained the right balance, I think.
Yeah. In terms of the people that they've brought in, some interesting players. Elliot Bonds from Cheltenham, Matthew Virtue from Blackpool in midfield, and Mark Helm as well, a midfielder from Burton Albion. Good signings, decent for the level, quite like that. Also Zek Medley, the former Arsenal youngster from Belgium, KV Oostende, and right back James Bolton from St Mirren. In terms of what they've lost, Jaden Stockley, obviously, big things touted from him a few years ago, hasn't necessarily worked out since he was at Preston in the Championship and has kind of slowly dropped down the leagues. He's gone to Port Vale, who we'll talk about in very, very brief terms, briefer than I wanted to, but we'll talk about them shortly. Cian Hayes, as we mentioned, has gone to Peterborough. Harvey McAdam has gone to Morecambe. Promise Omachere. Now, I don't know how much you know about Promise Omachere. Fantastic player who I've ever seen him play.
Yes, I've seen a fair bit of him. I'm not going to lie, I don't know too much, but as you know, I watch a lot of football, so I have seen him before. And he does look a talent.
Yeah, quite. So it's a bit of a strange one for me that he's only gone to Bristol Rovers. No disrespect for Bristol Rovers, but just not where I expected them to go. They've also lost a young lad that was in the academy, made a couple of appearances. Farrell Brown, he's gone to Hull. That's an interesting move. And another sort of young player from Guinea-Bissau, Junior Katerna. Another one where you've seen him, if you've seen him play, looks like a great player, has only gone to League One. He's not as promising, pardon the pun, as Promise Omachere, but still a good player. He's gone to Crawley. The only other major miss that I want to talk about is centre-back Ben Hennigan, who was basically a mainstay throughout that team that season, made 37 league appearances. He's been released and he's gone to Port Vale, who we've talked about more in this than I think we are going to talk about when we get to them, because we're running out of time. Very, very quickly, the team is pretty much the same as what was when they were that they got relegated with. Yeah, they've lost a lot, but I think they'll do okay. I think again, it's really difficult with these kind of first-time managers, squads that show a lot of promise. It's difficult to say. Again, if you said they were going to be 15th, I'd say yeah. If you said they were going to be 5th, I'd say yeah. So that is them. That's them, and we'll see how they get on.
Right, now on to League Two.
Richardson went the other way in the Omar Bogle deal. They are separate, but obviously it's a like for like. We took Newport striker Bogle, obviously, and they took ours in Baker Richardson. Good player on his day. Mostly, would go missing in games. I think was much preferred to Nevitt, and I understand that completely. We also released Billy Sass Davis, who played quite a few times for us. Charlie Colquette, who played like 2 or 3 times but was always injured, but came with a good reputation. And a big one because there was a lot made of this re-signing, even by me, because I remember what he was like the year we got promoted. It's Charlie Kirk. Now he's been released. With sadness, I think the one of the things about when he was at the Alex was he definitely had an attitude problem. And the thought was that when he went up to Charlton in League One and then to Blackpool in the Championship on loan, that by the time he came back here, he would be different. And he wasn't, and he didn't. He hardly affected games whatsoever, and that's really sad because he, you know, some of my best memories as an Alex fan over the recent years have been with him. Now, the very last point, and then that is it, because as has been said, we're running out of time, is to look at the team. 2 goalkeepers, Tom Booth and Flip Marshall. I would hope that Tom Booth starts in goal. Fantastic player, and was just unfortunate to get injured during the running. In defence, Ryan Cooney, Jamie Bell, Zach Williams, Mickey Dimitriou. I hope that this defence is the one that we kind of go with Knight, LaBelle, and Dimitriou. I think Cooney flatters just to deceive at times, but for the most part, he's pretty good. I do think his place will be taken by the number 28, Lewis Billington. I just realised that the list I'm reading off is listing them by squad numbers, so I was missing out defenders. I think Lewis Billington will take the place of Ryan Cooney because Billington is class. If we're going in terms of squad numbers, we've also got Max Sanders. Big hopes for him. Chris Long, really hope he can do something good this year because I don't think he will stay another season otherwise. Connor Thomas, somebody that I slated a little bit until he got injured and he was out of the team and we fell to pieces in midfield. So, yeah, happy he stayed. Omar Bogle, just hope he can score goals. Shiloh Tracy, just pure pace, just hope he can add more to his game. Joel Taberner, fantastic. If he can stay fit, he's going to have a good year this year. Jack Lancaster and Kane Hemmings and Philip Marshall, we talked about. Lucas Sant, one of the guys that signed his first professional contract. Don't expect to see too much of him, but we'll see. Matus Holacek, probably one of the ones that could have an unbelievable season if he plays. Like him a lot. Remember the name is what I'm going to say. James Connolly, we talked about. Owen Lunt could play a bit if he stays fit, not sure. Callum Agius, another one that could have a good season, should he play. Finn Roberts, we talked about him. Hope we see a lot of him. Jack Powell, if he comes back fit, he will be a game changer for us and he'll be fantastic. Charlie Finney, brother of Ollie Finney, who less said about the better until he's proven innocent or guilty of what he was charged of. But I hope Charlie Finney kicks on as well because he's another one that could do well for us. So, in summary, a squad full of a lot of players that could be fantastic and a good core that should at least, I think, give us upper mid-table. I don't know, a lot of other media are quite negative on current season. I'm not as positive as some fans because I think a lot of them see the transfer dealings we've made and think it's experience from a higher level, whereas I think others think, oh God, we've lost a lot. We could be in trouble. I think we'll be middle of the road, and that's good enough for me. And I will hand it over to Ben for any last thoughts on Crew before I let TubeMix take us home.
I think you've summed it up perfectly there, George. I just hope for your sake and everyone else I know who supports Crew they can have a good season this season and maybe go back to Wembley and get over the line.
Yeah. Do you want to take us home now, Will?
Yes, I will, absolutely. So, thank you, Ben and Jordan, for your insights. Thank you, lads.
Thank you, Will. It's been good to be back.
A pleasure.
Absolutely glad to have you back. And Ben, obviously, I talked about Ben's football folio. So, when is the next post from you on that?
The next post will be next Thursday, just before the Premier League season starts. It will be a preview of the Premier League season.
Absolutely, look forward to that. And of course, I'll be providing the link to Ben's football folio in the description below. And of course, the next episode of this, well, it'll be previewing the Premier League, won't it? And many changes, of course. Arne Slot replacing Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. And many changes there. And of course, also we'll look ahead to. I'm looking forward to the transfer show just after transfer deadline day, where we can round up all sorts of transfers from the world of football. But Jordan, Ben, thank you very much. Thank you for listening. If you want to, feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the TubeMix YouTube channel. And join us next time where we discuss all things football, and it'll be all without having kicked the ball. Goodbye.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Cheers. See ya.